Welcome. I see some folks trickling in. I'm going to go ahead and get started in just a minute or two here. If anyone wants to share maybe what they teach or what school they're from, that would be cool. Hey, David.
Hey, looks
We're
like we
going to
got
get,
two people in now.
yep, yep. So we're going to get going in a minute or two. You going to come hang out with me, David?
Yeah, I'll stand back in background just in case there's some while you're talking, I can answer questions in chat.
Awesome. Love to hear it. Just going to give this another minute here in case anyone's rolling in a little late. Excuse me, sorry about that. It's that time of year. If anyone wants to share what school they're from or what they teach in the chat, feel free. Just remember you'll need to switch. If you want everyone to see it, you'll need to switch the little box to say to everyone rather than to hosts and panelists. All right. Well, I think we should go ahead and get started. So today we are going to be talking about using course document annotations to enhance learning in online courses. And this webinar is being recorded, so don't worry if you miss something. You will be able to return to it later. And we'll get that sent out along with some notes from the meeting in the next week or so. My name is Alex Penn. I'm an instructional designer here at Harmonize, and I'm really excited to get to talk to you about this topic. Social annotation is something I loved using when I was teaching, and I think it's really powerful and underutilized. David, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm David Green. I'm an account executive with Harmonize, and I'll be monitoring chat today. So if you have any questions, if you want to throw those in there, I can try to answer those. And if not, I'll make sure that I relay them to Alex and she can get them answered.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Also, just feel free to jump in on the conversation. Usually I do these with Marcus, but he's not here today. So if you hear anything you want to chime in on, go for it. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the strategy of annotating course documents, what kinds of course documents you might consider annotating, and what kinds of annotations you might assign and why. And after we've talked through the pedagogy a little bit, I'll show you how to actually do it with Harmonize. And we'll talk as well about other options, how you might do this if you have other tools available to you. But I'll show you how you would actually set it up within Harmonize. All right, so before I get into tips and strategies, what are we actually talking about here? So we're talking about using something called social annotation to leave comments on to annotate course documents. This is stuff like your syllabus, your assignment sheets. Those are maybe the most obvious things. But I've also heard of people like annotated course rosters as kind of like an introduction, getting to know you assignment. And I'm going to stretch the definition a little bit too and talk about annotating sample assignments. So along with annotating assignment sheets, you could have your students annotate a sample assignment. And the kind of annotation that is really strong for this is social annotation, where folks get to not only leave comments together on the same document, but they can actually reply to each other's comments. And that feature of being able to reply and sort of have threaded discussions about little moments within the text is super cool because it allows your students to have discussions right in the margins of the text that are really rooted in the details of that text. And so this is great anytime you really want your students to focus closely on a reading and focus closely on the details of the reading. And so we hear all the time, instructors saying, man, I really wish my students would read the syllabus. Why are they asking me this question that is answered in the syllabus? That kind of thing. Or we hear from instructors who say, well, they seems like they didn't read the assignment sheet. They did this big project or this big paper, but it's not actually following the instructions. So social annotation can be a good way to get them to focus on those details in a meaningful way. So some tips and strategies for this. Explain the purpose. This is a key one. Whether you have your students annotating your syllabus or annotating an assignment sheet, whatever it is, you want to explain to them why they're doing this. And the main reason you want to do this is because it can easily feel like busy work otherwise, like, oh, I have to annotate my syllabus. I don't want to do that. So you want to explain to your students that the purpose of this is to help them sort of understand what they'll be learning in the course, to give them a space to ask and answer questions about course policies, and maybe even to take a little bit of control of their learning and think about what they would like to learn in the course. And of course, the purpose is going to influence what kinds of questions you ask your students, how you have them annotate the text. So, if you want them to ask questions about the syllabus or the assignment sheet, which I assume you do, that's part of the instructions you give them, right? And then you explain, why is it that we're doing this? Encourage students to at each other. So this is a very cool feature in Harmonize. So when your students reply to each other in Harmonize, it's going to automatically um, sort of at the other student and then notify them. And depending on how they have their notifications set up, they will receive an email saying that this other student has replied to them. And this is really nice because what we see a lot of times in standard discussions is that students don't even realize necessarily when someone has replied to them. And it's really important for students to know that someone has replied to them so they know to go back in and continue that discussion. So it's helpful to let students know, though, that they can also do this themselves. Like, so if, it's going to automatically at the person they're replying to, but they can at some other people as well. Um, and that's really good if you have students like asking and answering each other's questions about the assignment sheet. They want to know when their question gets answered. Give explicit instructions. So sometimes I will see folks just setting students loose on a reading and being like, annotate this. Your assignment is to annotate this. Leave an annotation. Leave 2 annotations, but they don't give explicit instructions or ideas. That's maybe the other way to think about this, just like ideas for what kind of comments to leave. And without that, your students may not know how to do this. Annotation is definitely not um, something that they will natively and inherently know how to do. And so just think about what kinds of things you might want them to do. For a syllabus, you might, for example, say, like, give them a list of things they can choose from. So say, leave 2 annotations and 1 reply, 2 comments, 2 posts and 1 comment. And I want you to consider things like asking questions, um, noting a topic that you're excited about and why, or a topic that you think is going to be particularly challenging and why. Maybe you want them to talk about why they think a certain course policy is in place. That can be really telling, right? And it helps them get into that policy section where we want them to be aware of the course policies. But having students think through, like, why is this the course policy? Gives them space to even, like, maybe even question a little bit why things are the way they are, and get familiar with those course policies. You could have them leave comments about, if they've encountered these topics in other classes before. It kind of depends what's on your syllabus, but if you have that weekly breakdown of topics, they could think about what topics they've encountered elsewhere. And then they're activating prior knowledge, which we know is great for student learning. For an assignment sheet, if you're having them annotate an assignment sheet, questions. I always say recommend students ask questions, that could be one option. Another option could be noting something that they think is going to be very challenging on the assignment, or maybe noting something that they think will be easy. Connecting something on the assignment to, okay, this is the day in class we learned this. Linking to resources to help with something like, oh, here's what I like to use. This is the grammar guide I like to use. Here's the Purdue OWL, the online writing lab. This is what I like to use to help me with citation or something like that. So they could link to resources for the other students to help them. They could just share what's challenging. These are all kinds of good options for annotating an assignment sheet. If you have them annotating a sample assignment, you could ask them to, like, try to identify where the sample is meeting or not meeting different criteria on the rubric and why. And then you could have them reply to each other, thinking about like, do you agree or disagree? Why? That's like another key part of the explicit instructions. Don't just give them ideas for how to post, give them ideas for how to reply to each other. Obviously answering a question is one, and that's a pretty low hanging fruit. But they can also be extending what their peers are saying, elaborating, adding on resources, making more connections, questioning, these kinds of things. Get creative. What can be converted to a PDF? So our tool in Harmonize at least works with PDFs. And so really think about like, what are all the things that could get converted to PDFs? Like I said earlier, you could convert your class roster to a PDF. So anything in Word, you can convert to a PDF. You can convert Google Slides to a PDF. So say you have your lecture in Google Slides or PowerPoint, and you convert those to a PDF, your students are then going to be able to annotate those. And you could have your students, you could even have your students doing that like during class, like annotating, if you had like a live class, annotating the slides together collaboratively. So think about, just the wide variety of course documents you have, and what you might be able to do with any that you can convert to a PDF. This kind of goes along with that. So like, this is my caveat to that. We know that PDFs have some accessibility challenges. If you've ever taken a PDF and tried to make it accessible with the built-in native Adobe tools, you know the pain. And so my recommendation here is with your course documents, do everything you can to check and perfect the accessibility before you convert them to PDF. The conversion process tends to go very well, especially for something like Word or PowerPoint. If you've done the accessibility check, you've made sure things have, color contrast and the right headings and using built-in lists, all that good stuff is going to come over when you convert to the PDF. Switch visibility. So this is a good one. This is actually one that's coming up. This is not available yet, but very soon you will have the ability in Harmonize to change the visibility on PDF annotations. So you will be able to you will be able to assign PDF annotations that are just for the student, that are private for the student. And then you will also be able to switch that visibility. So for example, you can have your students annotate a sample essay and like give all their thoughts on it. And you can assign that in private visibility mode. So they aren't seeing each other's comments yet. And then you can turn on everyone and have them be able to see everyone else's comments. And now they can see how other people have evaluated the sample and they can reply to each other and make comments about that. Same kind of thing for syllabus if you wanted to, if you really wanted to sort of like have them do it by themselves first and then like be able to see each other's comments and reply. That's a cool feature. All right, so that takes us through different ideas for how you might use course document annotation in your class, how to make it work, different tips and strategies. Let's look at how you would actually do this in Harmonize. So I'm going to come over to my demo site and I'm going to head to modules. And there are different ways to do this, whether you're doing it graded or ungraded. If you wanted to do it ungraded, you could come to this little plus. And I'm doing this in Canvas, so it's going to be different depending on what platform you're in. But there are instructions for doing it in the different platforms. In whatever platform you're in, you can do PDF annotations, graded or ungraded. In Canvas, I would add as an external tool to have ungraded, but I'm going to create an assignment instead. I'm going to create a PDF annotation. Let's make specifically a syllabus annotation assignment. And I should go ahead and drop some instructions and go ahead and grab as I'm doing this, I'm going to drop some instructions for you guys for how to do this on different platforms, since I'm not totally sure how everyone is coming. Graded PDF annotations. Let me grab this. This should show you, this shows you setup in Canvas, but yes, it shows you the other LMSs as well. Okay, so let me just drop that in there so you'll have a guide no matter what your LMS is. But for now, I'm going to do this in Canvas. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to set some points. I'm going to set a due date. And then I'm going to click external tool. I'm going to find Harmonize and connect to it. And then this is where we start to look kind of like all the LMSs. You're going to get to a point where you would normally choose discussion if you normally do Harmonized discussions. And instead, we're going to choose PDF annotation. And when you get to this point, there's one more step. You don't just get to create, you need to add a file. So I have a file queued up in my downloads that I'm going to use. I've got a sample syllabus here as a PDF. I'm going to open it, give it a minute. All right, it's in. Then I'm going to click create, select, say save. And then I'm going to open, and I'm taken to an editor. So you can see my linked PDF up here. This is where I would put in my instructions. So this is where I would say something like, I would like you to, purpose. Always a good idea to put the purpose, as we discussed earlier. So blah, blah, blah. Here's my explanation of the purpose. And then instructions, gonna say, leave 2 annotations and 1 reply. Here are some things you might try. And this is where I'll list out things like ask a question, identify something interesting, and why, whatever it is you want to put here. And you have all the tools at your disposal that you would normally have in a harmonized discussion. So if you want to attach other files to this, you can. Like say you are having your students annotate a sample assignment, you could attach the assignment instructions right here so that they'll remember to go look at what the assignment actually is that the sample is being written for. Or you could add a link to that assignment. You can record a video here and give them their instructions for this annotation in activity as a video. You could even poll them. That could be really cool with something like a sample assignment, right? Because you could poll them on the different grading criteria. How do you think the sample did on this grading criteria? How do you think it did on this one? And then they'll actually be able to see how everyone scored it on different grading criteria. Just some little possibilities there. And polling is fun for a syllabus too. Ask them some questions about the syllabus while you're at it. Whenever you're happy, you click publish. And you'll see that the assignment instructions appear up here and the PDF appears down low. You can hide the instructions, and you should probably let your students know they can do that because this looks a little bit better when the instructions are collapsed and you have a little bit more space. And then the way this is going to work is your students will be able to scroll through and highlight text and comment on it. So this is a sample syllabus, so it doesn't have the meatiest stuff to dive into, but we could imagine putting a little comment here, like, so I highlight and then this box pops up where I can click add new comment. I can say, oh, I didn't know this was listed in the handbook. Does anyone have a link to the handbook? Or whatever comment it is you want to put in, and you can click publish. And then other students will be able to come in and reply to each other. It didn't at me because I'm replying to myself, but if I had replied to another student here, it would have added them. I think, in fact, and if I click at, this is where I can call out specific people that I maybe want to see my annotation, which is cool too. So that is the basics of how that would work. I think that takes us through everything, through the logistics of I guess I could show you as well how you would grade one of these. If I can find one really quickly, I can show you what the grading interface for this is going to look like. Let's see if I can find a good example. Let's see. I'm gonna try to find, well, course, when you want one, you can't find it, huh? Let's see. Do you have any good here? No. Harmonize PDF annotation. Let's take a look at this and see what this looks like in SpeedGrader. Oh, it doesn't have any submissions. Okay. All right. Forget that. Anyway, this is something that you will be able to grade though with the SpeedGrader. When you go into the SpeedGrader, you will be able to see everyone's annotations, which is really nice. I mentioned earlier that I would talk about how to do this in different tools. And you can absolutely assign annotation of assignments. Just have students do it in something like Google Docs if you don't have Harmonize available. The nice thing about having an actual social annotation tool like Harmonize is that integration with the SpeedGrader so that it's really easy to flip through and see all the comments that your students have made and to grade on those. All right, I think that takes us to the end. Does anyone have any questions? Anything they want to ask about or chime in with? Feel free to type in the chat. Feel free to type questions in the Q&A. We can even unmute you if you would like to just chat with us. Anyone? Going once, going twice. All right, then with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you about the ways that you can use social annotation to get your students to engage more closely with those PDFs. Oh, I do see a question coming in. Does it prevent students from choosing the same color for their comments as someone else? Oh, that's an interesting question. No, and there are only a certain number of colors available. So when we're in here, if we find a spot to annotate, let me get here and see what I can do here. Why did I lose my little annotator? Okay, so say I highlight and I click new comment. I can change the color here. Oh no, it does let me choose different colors, so I can use whatever color I want. That's pretty cool. But no, there's no way to bar them from using any particular color. That's kind of a cool thing, David. It sounds like you're imagining having the students maybe each have a different color. One thing I've seen colors used for is if you give them different options, you could have them color code what kind of comments they're making. So you could say like, I want you to do questions in green, or I want you to do, you know, things that are interesting in red. Yeah. So you can absolutely do that kind of thing. One caveat there is that won't translate for people with, like color blindness or any kind of visual impairment. So use sparingly and or ask students to have some secondary text indicator of that. But yeah, we have that color feature. I should mention too, if you have like a graphic syllabus, this is a fun thing. I did one of these years ago. I don't know if these are hot anymore, but if you have a graphic syllabus with like maybe charts, like bar graphs that show them the percent grade breakdown or different things like that, images, in addition to being able to highlight text, you can drop a pin. Is it gonna let me drop a pin? Oh, it didn't like that I didn't finish my other annotation. Hang on. To discard changes on that. You can also drop a pin anywhere. So you can use that for text as well. But if you have graphic elements, that pinning is nice and can be nice as well for different kinds of, I'm trying to think through what kind of course documents might have images. But anywhere you would have an image, they can use that pinning feature. And then the pins as well have a color option with them. Cool. Other questions? I cut us off too fast before. I'm gonna make sure I answer any questions folks have. Okay. Thank you guys for joining us today. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that this recording gets sent out to y'all after the meeting. We will include notes with it, including some resources about different kinds of assignments you can do and different suggestions for annotations. So hopefully that this is something that you or instructors you work with will find useful in upcoming courses. The other thing I wanted to send your way really quickly before we head out, I want to make sure you have our support email address. It is support@harmonizelearning.com. If you have any questions about this, how to set it up, how to grade it, if you just want to chat about like more ideas for how to use social annotation of PDFs with your course documents, please reach out to us. We love to help with this kind of thing, and we love to hear what you're doing. All right, everyone, have a great day. Bye.